the Karnataka government has now announced an amendment to the taxes that up until now were being paid by the temple trusts in the state. What has happened now is that richer the temple trust, more tax it is obliged to pay. It all sounds fair and logical on paper, right? But here lies the fundamental question. For a century and a half, the temple trusts in southern states of the country have been brought under the ambit of the state governments. In contrast, this has not been the case for churches, gurdwaras and the Waqf boards, which continue to function as private trusts. So the question I ask over here is, what needs to be done to change the situation? How do we bring about parity in this matter? Let's start my conversation. Joining me on the telecast is Vivek Reddy. Vivek Reddy is a senior advocate. Quickly getting a response from you, Vivek. Going back in the 1800s, where a measure had been taken by the British government that it needed to take control of the temple trusts because of the misappropriation of funds, because of the land grab cases that used to come up, and because of the fact a number of these temple trusts used to have more funds and revenues than the zamindars or the small feudal lords of the country. So, the Religious Endowments Act that came into being has continued to prosper up until today in certain states of our country down south. In contrast, if we take a look at the Waqf boards that continue to be the independent trusts privately owned, also were under the glare of the British government. But because of the Muslim personal laws, there was at that time quite the confusion and the haziness about how the Islamic laws function. And the reason why the British decided to let the Waqf board be. Now, the discussion that I hold about how there has been an amendment that has been made by the Karnataka government to ask temple trusts to give larger percentage of their revenues to the government depending on how rich they are, how cash rich they are. So, while there is on one hand a discussion that all temple trusts need to be privatized, there is another discussion taking place about whether there can be Waqf boards, churches, gurdwaras that can be brought under the ambit of the government, keeping in mind that this is money that is donated by the public, therefore it needs to be given back to the public for their welfare.
Well, I think first of all, this is a very selective amendment, very discriminatory, arbitrary, because it selects only the Hindu institutions. The question I ask the state government is, there are Waqf institutions of the Muslims, there are Christian institutions, there are Gurudwaras and there are Jain Dhamas. Why has not the government selected them for this sort of a treatment or this sort of an amendment? It is very clear that whenever Congress government comes into play in any state in India or even at the center earlier, about 10 years ago, Hindus were selected for this sort of a rash treatment, discriminatory treatment and whimsical sort of amendments.
But Vivek, I don't want to get into the Hindu-Muslim polarization debate, which I had anticipated that it is going to fall into. But my question being, when the BJP government was in rule in Karnataka, why was the government not in favor of changing those rules and bringing about a complete blanket change in how the temple trusts function?
Well, nobody estimated that you would tax a religious institution. Religious institutions are today taxed under the income tax law. That is a general taxation that arises under 80C. Apart from this, the state government is levying a 10% tax. And if it is levying this tax, state is supposed to be secular. We cannot evade the question of Hindu institutions and other religious institutions. Even if we don't want to use the word Muslim, let us use the word other institutions. The point is, how do you select only Hindu institutions for 10% contribution and 10% tax. I mean, somebody told me, it's a very interesting synonym for this. They said this is something like Aurangzeb's jizya tax, where he imposed this tax only on institutions which were non-Islamic. But look at how the Congress is acting here. Look at how peculiar its behavior is. Look at how it concentrates and it focuses its amendment only on Hindu institutions. Now, if you look at the larger constitutional question, there is a constitutional freedom that institutions should be managed by those religious pontiffs or religious managements. There is freedom to manage these institutions under the various articles of the Constitution. Well, the question is, when they are managing these institutions, whether you can tax them. Absolutely not. You cannot tax them. Either it cuts equally across all sections of societies and all religious identities, or it is not at all. You cannot do it. The state's peculiar intention here, very strange, very bizarre. The state is only selecting Hindu institutions for this, and this is arbitrary. And there is also a larger agenda in this. The larger agenda is the state wants to peep into the activities of Hindu religious institutions. It wants to know what these religious institutions are doing. The state has no role there. These are peaceful institutions running their own religious institutions according to their customs, according to their traditions, according to their panth or according to their pontiff. These religious institutions are aged thousands of years, some hundreds of years. These several great pontiffs, Hindu pontiffs, have started these religious institutions. How can the state peep into their functioning?
Okay, fair.
And the amendment says that they will also
bring... Advocate Umar Junaidi also on the telecast with me now. Advocate Umar, you've heard it from what Vivek Reddy said. And the moot question continues to be, either the governments should not tax any religious institutions or trusts, or then have a blanket policy of taxing every single trust, whether it is about churches or gurdwaras or the Waqf boards. And it's no, I don't want to delve into the Hindu-Muslim debate. This is about the parity that needs to be shown by the governments. And I'm again going to mention that this taxation that used to be in the past as well, it used to be the Yediyurappa government that at one point of time ruled Karnataka. It was Basavaraj Bommai from the BJP who also used to rule and govern Karnataka. Why were these changes not thought of at that point of time?
Good evening, Megha. First of all, I would like to say you that the moment you said you are not getting indulged into Hindu-Muslim debate on a particular topic, I would like to say that this debate cannot be possible if you are not doing Hindu-Muslim, because the whole agenda...
But this is about Hindu, Muslim, Christians, Parsis, Sikhs.
Listen. Let me complete, Megha. Let me complete. This cannot be complete. This debate cannot be completed unless and until this Hindu-Muslim comes out. Because the main agenda and the idea of BJP to rise this issue out of nowhere is to do Hindu-Muslim. Because, as you said, it was Yediyurappa, the chief minister, Basavaraj Bommai, the chief minister, and these were the rules and the regulations at that time as well. Now, one of the panelists from the who was speaking before me, he just said that the act is like it had been introduced yesterday in the government of Karnataka, and all of a sudden this taxation has been done. But the factual point is the acts and the regulations were in the past and it are in the present as well.
So can't the Karnataka government of today be the spearhead this change, bring about parity, like I said, uniformity in how it taxes religious institutions and trusts? Why can't the Siddaramaiah government take this step? Why is Siddaramaiah government following what has happened since 1963?
Megha, the Muslim organizations have Waqf board and they contribute 7% of their annual income to the Waqf board, which is then used for the constructions of the compound wall or the guest houses, in short for the welfare of the institutions which are registered in the Waqf. And the same is going with the temple trust, the common pool fund. Whatever the funds are being, the taxes are being paid by the religious institutions, let us say temples, that will be used for the temples only. For the category which comes under C category, who doesn't need to pay the taxes, and the taxes paid by the category A will be used for the development of the category C temples.
But then why
DTs?
should
What
the
about
temple
priests?
trust come under the ambit of the state government? Why shouldn't the Waqf board come under the ambit of the government?
That is the different topic to be debated on, Megha.
No, but
what the
I'm
point
saying
with-
these are interrelated. I'm saying, you're saying that there is an amendment that has been made by the Siddaramaiah government, which is good. You're saying the temple trust, which is richer, should pay larger percentage of the tax. A temple trust which is not as rich can be, allowed to pay lesser, it can be exempted or allowed to pay lesser percentage of the tax. But the moot point over here continues to be that why is there an anomaly shown when it is the temple trust? Why can't other religious institutions brought under the same umbrella of the government? And if that is not possible, then not allow temple trust also to be under the ambit of the government. Now, whether it is the BJP government that is following this diktat or the Congress government or any other government is not my concern. My concern is government of the day needs to be just.
Megha, the point is very different and the debate is very different. What we are talking is whether only the temple trust should be taxed, or the Waqf institutions or the churches or the gurudwaras. But the point what I am debating on is the amendment done by the Siddaramaiah government, which has increased the limit, which was 10 lakh. The government has increased to 1 crore. Only those temples whose annual income are more than 1 crore have to pay the 10% of the taxes. And what now BJP is trying to show, BJP is trying to make.
That is just one small thing, one small part of the larger debate. There have been cases that have been filed in the Supreme Court. There have been hearings that have taken place. This is a complicated, complex matter. You are just touching upon the tip of the iceberg over here. Advocate Umar, you are touching the tip of the iceberg. Quickly getting in Monica Verma as well on the telecast with me. Monica, what's your inference, and why do you think governments, whether it is the BJP or the Congress or the DMK or any other government, have not been able to make changes which are very clear to all that need to be made?
History of this matter, then it goes back all the way to colonization of India by the British, and like it happened with many other issues as well. At that time, I think 1925 was the year when the British, they started taxing Indian temples. They took them under control, and I don't remember the exact name of that law, but that law was very secular in nature. It wanted to cover the entire, not just temples, but other places, other religious
endowments
as well.
Yeah, I mean, it wanted to cover other trusts as well. But at the end of the day, only the temple trusts were brought under the ambit.
So what happened, Medha, I'll tell you what happened was that lobbying and also a lot of street pressure was applied at that time. Every other community had used, whatever means they had at their disposal, and they had protested against it tooth and nail. And like it happened with the personal law as well. If you look at the history of Hindu personal law, at that time also, something similar for other religions was also contemplated, but it was only and only the Hindus that finally fell into that net. And, today we have a Hindu personal thing and other religions don't have it. And now we are struggling to pass a uniform civil code. Something similar had also taken place during the time of colonization. And I am very, it's very unfortunate, and I'm very touched by this issue that something that the British Raj did to the Hindus was continued by the so-called secular state as well. So today we have a secular state, and we gave ourselves this constitution that has Article 26, which talks about, no interference in setting up of religious institutions and their management. That is what Article 26 says. We have two advocates, right now on your panel. But But what's the reality? Article 26 is something which is not taken seriously when it comes to the control of the Hindu temples, Hindu mutts, and other Hindu religious institutions by the state. I mean, if we have a secular state, even if the word secular was inserted only in 1976, fine. But if we have a state that does not want to interfere in religious matters of Parsis, of Christians, of Muslims, then why do we have a state that is interfering in the matters of Hindu? Now, there are two ways of looking at it. Either the state declares itself openly that it wants to manage the Hindu affairs, but in that case, it will have to also agree that the character of the state is now being Hinduized. And that way, there can be a lot of give and take between the state and the Hindu community. But if the state is claiming that I want to be equidistant with every single religion, then it has no business managing Hindu worship. And it's not about just this Karnataka law. It's not about just what has happened in Karnataka. It's something which is going on from a long, long time. People have been...
Okay, all right.
People have been...
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. I've taken your point. Now, Advocate Umar, quickly coming to you again, talking about this peculiarity that is seen only in some of the southern states, whether it is Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu, where the temple trusts are under the ambit of the state governments. Why is this not very visible when it comes to the northern states and the western states of the country?
Megha, the fact is, these are not the new laws made yesterday in the southern parts of the country, or it has been boycotted by since many years in the northern state.
Right.
It is what it is. It is what it is. The government the states had the law earlier, and what Congress government in Karnataka is trying to do is to increase the slab. I mean, if they have the income of 10 lakh rupees, they have increased it to 1
we are going back to the this is just a technicality. Like I said, when I gave the introduction, this is a technicality, and it is very good that the government of Karnataka has changed the tax slab. But my moot question being, this is, like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You're just looking at the leg of the elephant. You need to take a look at the entire elephant and then make a judicious decision and an analysis.
But okay, has not looked on the whole elephant.
Advocate Umar, do you agree? Do you agree that there has to be a uniform law applied to all the religious trusts? Yes or no?
Why uniformity you're talking about? We are the nation of unity and diversity. Why everything has to be uniform?
It's got nothing to do with unity in diversity. It is about the government taking total control of a religious institution. When the governments need to refrain themselves from being any participant in religious institutions or anything religious. Although, unfortunately, what the governments actually do is to fight the elections, play the communal polarization card, whether it is about Hindus or Muslims or any other, or north-south divide. But the question, again, I'm going to ask you, Advocate Umar, is this not right for the governments of the day to let go of their control on temple trusts? Simply because of the fact there are other religious institutions that are not under the ambit of the government. And if they want the temple trust to be under the ambit of the governments, why must other religious institutions be exempt from it?
Megha, whenever a bill is tabled or the law is passed, every aspect of the disadvantages and advantages of it will be taken care of, and that is what the result has been done. On the basis of all the scrutinizing, the law has been made, and the BJP was in power in several states.
The law was made in 1863.
BJP was in power before 2018.
Fair enough. That's what I'm saying.
23.
That's what I'm saying. I'm asking the question from the. This is not about BJP, Congress, or DMK. This is a question about.
Megha, why are we talking now?
This is a question.
Why are we talking now? It is not the. It is
You
not
know,
the.
I'm going to talk about
time
this
to talk.
every single time. I'm going to talk about this 10 years from now if the law is not changed. I was talking about this 5 years ago when the law was not changed. I have the right to talk about it because this is disparity. This is not, this is inequality. This is therefore,
Definitely you have the right. You
this
have
is therefore
the right to question
weighing on
every
the scales,
single time.
the
But the
temple
point
trust.
what I am
I mean,
trying
this
to
is
make
an anomaly, this is a
it not the
peculiarity
point
that
wherein
needs
the
to be
Congress
resolved
does
by
the
the governments of
amendment
the day.
Act and
So
you
when
ask
you
the
say
question why
the
this law
northern
was made.
states have boycotted this law and therefore voluntarily decided to exempt the temple trust from the ambit of the governments, why can't the same be replicated by the southern states, by the state of Karnataka or Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh? Quickly coming back to you, Vivek Reddy, how do we move forward and bring about a change? Because it will have to be brought in terms of the policy changes, and it is sort of surprising, astounding that this change has still not been brought in terms of the governments. After governments, we have been independent for 76 years now, but the governments of the day have not been able to bring an amendment to this policy in the Lok Sabha, in the parliament, and there has been no statement that has been made by the Supreme Court also on this.
Well, I think, first of all, we must square up all these laws with Article 26 of the Constitution, as Monica said. These, if they infringe upon the management, if they arbitrarily interfere into or deeply penetrate into the management, I think it's wholly unconstitutional. They cannot do it. The Constitution draws the Lakshman Rekha that they cannot interfere. But coming back to what Mr. Umar said, I don't think he should look at the Hindu institutions and say that Muslim institutions are paying so much, so why should the Hindu institutions pay? I think the Waqf Act, he must read the Waqf Act of 1995. The Waqf Act nowhere says that 7% has to be paid. Nowhere does it say. And
I didn't say
don't
that
think
the Muslims are paying the taxes the Hindu temple should pay. I didn't say that.
No.
Correct yourself.
Nowhere,
Correct yourself.
nowhere does it. Where does the Waqf Act say 7% is being paid? I don't think there is any contribution of the Waqf institutions. There are dargahs throughout the nation. Where does it say 7% has to be paid? I've
7% of the contribution
Waqf Act cases.
There is contribution.
No way.
The 7% of total income is given as a Waqf contribution.
Please understand,
Please
Mr.
get
Umar,
your knowledge correct. Please get your knowledge correct.
You get your right. Sure, tell me the
I
provision.
didn't say that
Tell me the
the Waqf
provision.
board is paying.
Tell me the Waqf Act.
Sir,
I know the Waqf
I-
Act from section
sir,
1 to the end. Tell me the Waqf Act.
Definitely, it's
Which
very
provision
good.
of Waqf
It's
Act? Tell
very
me.
good.
You
I
are
didn't
making
say
a claim
that
about
the
7%.
The Waqf
Tell me
institutions are
which
paying
provision?
taxes, the Hindu
No,
temple should pay.
don't go,
I
don't
didn't say
divert.
that. I didn't
Which
say
provision?
that. I didn't
You
say
don't
that
have
the
the
Hindu
provision.
temple should pay
Okay.
because the Muslim
Therefore-
dargahs are
Okay,
paying.
all right. I
The
don't think
mosques
we're going
are paying.
anywhere
I
with
didn't
this
say that.
discussion because you're talking over each other, so we're not even able to understand. And obviously, this is a technicality that you at this point in time are arguing upon. My moot question being, why can't there be uniformity in the laws when it comes to all the religious institutions? I am not saying, why single out a particular religion? Why single out a religious trust? Simply because the government had, back in the day, in 1863, decided to come up with a law. It's also appalling and astounding and surprising to know that the law that was passed by the British in 1863 has still not been amended. It has been a century, even more than that.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.